All right, we're on the back side of the Unit 2 retest, starting with number 14. Got milk? A gallon jug of milk is 2/3 full. After breakfast, the jug is 1/12 full. Find the difference of the amounts before breakfast and after breakfast. So before breakfast, it was 2/3 full. After breakfast, 1/12 full. Find the difference. So we know that the code word difference means subtract. So we're going to subtract 2/3 minus 1/12, but we need to have a least common denominator before we can subtract with fractions. So again, first thing, got to check if 1 goes into the other. 3 does go into 12, so we're going to convert 2/3 to 12ths. 3 times 4 is 12, so 2 times 4 is 8. And then we have 1/12. The difference between them is going to be subtracting. 8/12 minus 1/12 is 7/12. Now here I made a boo-boo. I left out the number for 15, so we're just going to write in a little 15 right here and give it its own line. Number 15, you buy a bag of dog food for $12.55 and a bottle of dog shampoo for $4.42. How much more did the dog food cost than the shampoo? Than is showing the comparison. The phrase how much more means, again, it's going to be subtracting. So I'm going to subtract 12.55, lining up the decimals, and subtract 4.42. No regrouping needs to happen, so this is just $8.32. Oh, sorry, $8.13. That's better. Okay, now we're on to a new direction. Multiply or divide. Write fractions in simplest forms. So just the fractions, you don't change the decimals to fractions or anything. But if they were fractions, you're going to write them in simplest form. So for all of these, I reminded the students that the rule for negatives is very simple. If you have 1 negative, the answer is going to be negative. And 2 negatives, the answer is going to be positive for multiplication and division. So I said, go through and put, by counting the negatives, the sign for the answer. And hopefully they did that just fine. If your student didn't do that well, or if you know that you didn't do it well, you need to remember that 2 negatives is going to make a positive answer. Here, 1 negative is going to make a negative answer. 1 negative, negative answer. 2 negatives, positive answer. 2 negatives, positive answer. 1 negative, negative answer. So if you do that, then you don't have to worry about the negatives anymore. Okay, number 16. 3/5 times negative 3/5 times negative 1 and 1/4. Again, we already took care of the negatives, so I'm even going to drop them from my work. I'm going to take 3/5, and remember that I'm going to be multiplying, so I'm going to change 1 and 1/4 using bottom times the big, add the top. 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Over 4. Now that's nice because we remember that when we have twins, they easily can factor out. We would be dividing them both by the same exact number, the number that it is, divide them both by 5. So you don't really need to draw these factor bubbles, but just as a quick reminder, we're going to do that. And we see our final answer is going to be 3/4. 3 times 1 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4, and we know 3/4 is consecutive, so it is in lowest terms. So number 16 is 3/4. Number 17. This is multiplying. I'm going to go ahead and put the multiplying 0.3 right here. 5 times 3 is 15. Carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. Then I go back and count the decimal places from above. Remember, for multiplying, you think decimal dance. And when you're multiplying, ignore the decimals. First find the product, yeah. And then count the decimal places from above. So you got 1, 2, 3 decimal places. Make the answer have the same total decimal places. So you ran out of digits, you're going to fill in with 1 0. So your answer is 0.045. We already know that the answer is going to be negative. So you can add an extra 0 in front if you'd like. You don't need it, but you can. You have to have this 0 and the 4 and the 5. Another way that you could show the work, maybe to have it closer, just to be very clear, 2 negatives makes a positive answer, and then you bring your answer straight up. So now it's all linear. That might be cooler for people to understand. Here you see 1 negative, and then we bring our answer straight up, 0.045. Number 18, first number goes under. So the 4.8 is if there's just one decimal and it's on the inside, move the decimal straight up and then normal divide. Does 12 go into 4? No. 48? Yes. 4 times. And we remember that we've got the negative, so it's going to equal negative 0.4. Sorry, a little crowded. Negative 0.4. Okay, number 19. They're both fractions already. I know with fractions we want to change them into fractions first for multiplying and dividing, but now we're going to go on the dividing detour. The dividing detour, remember, is keep, change, flip. You're going to keep the first term, 2/7. Change the operation sign to multiplication and flip the second term. Use the reciprocal. So it's going to be 21 on top and 4 on bottom. Now, we do have things that we can factor. 7 and 21 can both be divided by 7. This is 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 21 divided by 7 is 3. And 2 and 4 can both be divided by 2. This becomes a 1. This becomes a 2. So our answer is going to be 3/2, which equals 1 1/2. We remember that 2 negatives makes a positive, so the answer here is going to be positive 3/2 or positive 1 1/2. So number 19. Okay, number 20. Number 20 has 3 numbers to multiply, but when you multiply anything times -1, it doesn't really change any number. Anything times -1 is going to be that same number. However, the negative is going to be the important part. So when you multiply it by a negative, it's going to mean that you have 2 negatives in the question, so this final answer is going to be positive. But other than that, we don't really need to worry about the -1. So forget about it. Now you've got 2/3, bottom times the big, add the top. You've got 9/4. You can factor bubble the 2 and 4. I know that you're getting so used to this, but on a test, just in case, I would probably still do it. You do not want to get it wrong. Map test is coming up. You definitely want to make sure that you're doing your very best with that. And, oh look, this question's answer is also 3/2, which equals 1 1/2. Both of them would be the positive. So we had 2 in a row that are equal to 3/2 or 1 1/2. Number 20. Number 20 is division. Top number goes under, or first number goes under. So in this case, it's first number. This is the second face of decimals. So this is, or if there are two decimal points, move them both, then straight up divide. So this is move 1, and then it was here, and now it goes straight up for the answer. So now it's 24 into 96, which happens to go exactly 4 times. That's going to be 96, and it's going to be terminating. There's nothing left there. Okay, so that equals 4, because the decimal point's behind it. But we have, again, 1 negative, so the answer is going to be -4. -4. Okay, number 22, 23, and 25, we have word problems that we're going to be talking about and giving 2 extra credit points. So this test was really out of 106%. I want to pause right now and remind you that we are going to be using the gold correctives. Now this is the gold corrective for the last test, the practice test. We want to remind ourselves that sometimes we can abbreviate things into messages and meaning that we know from class. We want to show out the problem, we want to do all the work, be as clear as we can be, but when we're explaining and showing what you must do, you don't have to write it out necessarily in longhand. You're just going to write out the steps that you know work always. So for example, this is 1 negative, means the answer is negative. You're going to divide, top number goes under. This is showing that you move the decimals both twice to the right and then straight up for the answer. And that's what the student needed to do in order to fix it. Number 22, the students had already seen this, so I was really surprised when not as many people got this right. The work here is saying 8 divided by 2/3, which is easy enough to make 8 into a fraction, 8 over 1 divided by 2/3, and then it becomes 8 over 1 times 3 over 2 when you use the keep, change, flip, dividing detour. And that would equal 12 packages. Well, this was the last test. We went through the steps, we knew that we were supposed to divide, we knew that they changed to fraction first, and then we did the dividing detour. So the students had this information. But many of them still struggled with this. Now this is the question, and it's real life. So as many other real life problems like this that you could help create for your students, that would be great. Number 22, how many 1/3 ounce packages of peanuts can be made with 8 ounces of peanuts? Explain how you found your answer. Well, if you had a container that had 8 ounces of peanuts, and you need to separate it into little 1/3 ounce peanut containers, you should be able to tell from that. Sorry, it's hard to see that it's a 3, so I'll just write it again in black. You should be able to tell that you're going to take the big package and separate it into little packages, and that separation means divide. So you're going to take 8 and divide it by 1/3. So to change 8 into a fraction, you're going to put it over 1, and now you're going to do keep, change, flip, and easily get 24 over 1, which equals 24 packages. Now, any way that you choose to explain this is just fine. You could say I divided 8 by 1/3, or I knew that 1/3 would be 3 for 1 ounce, so it would be 3 times 8, which is 24 for 8 ounces. You decide, but you needed to have an explanation here. If you don't explain how you found your answer, then you won't get all 6 points. And remember, this one's worth 2 extra credit points, more than just the 4 like everybody else is, because you've got some writing to do, and I want to make sure that you're doing that. So, one way would be, I separated 8 ounces into 1/3 ounce packages by dividing. And got 24 packages. Okay. Number 23. A recipe calls for 2 1/2 cups sugar. You have 2 2/5 cups sugar. Do you have enough sugar? If not, how much more sugar is needed? Explain your answer. So all these things, they have to explain the answer. So 2 1/2 compared to 2 2/5. If I made them both into tenths, this would be 2 5/10, and this would be 2 4/10. I need 2 1/2, so this is what I need, and this is what I have, so I don't quite have enough. What's the difference between these two? Well, I need 1/10 cup more sugar. So my answer is no. I will need 1/10 cup more sugar. Okay, number 24. 24, you're finding the perimeter. The perimeter is the distance around. but the distance around all four sides. So you're going to have 4 1/3 plus 8 1/6 plus another 4 1/3 plus another 8 1/6. Well, the least common denominator between 3 and 6 is 6. So I'm going to just quickly convert 4 1/3 into 4 2/6. Now I've got two of those, 4 2/6, and I've got 2 of the 8 1/6. And now I can add those up. This isn't the only way to do this problem, but this seems like an easy way for me. So I have 2, 4, 5, 6 sixths. 4 plus 4 is 8, and then 2 more 8s, so it's going to be 24. So I have 24 and 6 sixths. We know that 6 6 is equal to a giant 1. So that's 24 plus 1 more, which is 25 inches. Okay, last. A 14.5 gallon gasoline tank is 4/5 full. How many gallons will it take to fill the tank? That's the tricky part. How many gallons will it take to fill the tank? So, if it's 4/5 full, then it's 1/5 not full. So you need to figure out 1/5 is what we need to have to fill. And 1/5 is equal to 0.2. So if you had a 14.5 tank, 14.5 gallon tank, and you find out what 2/5 of it, of means to multiply, then you'll get your answer. 2 times 5 is 10, carry the 1, 8, 9, 2. 2 decimal places in the question. So we're going to make the answer have 2 decimal places. 1, 2. Now we need to make sure that our answer makes sense. 2.9 gallons. Yeah, that makes sense. If the gasoline tank was this big and it was 4/5 full, this little part could be 2.9 gallons. That's logical. Okay, so that's the answer. And I need 2.9 gallons to fill the tank. Gallons. Okay, so I wasn't paying attention to how well I'm showing everything, so I'm hoping that you got to see everything. And just in case, I'll put it up there one last time. It's not staying, so now I'll do it like that. Okay, thanks. I hope this really helps you. Keep studying. Make sure that you know these things for map testing and for all future math classes, especially for Algebra 1. We want to make sure that you pass Algebra 1 your first try through. Thanks. Bye-bye.